stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. 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 Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. 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 Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a planet. Can't nobody stop us. Can't nobody stop us. Can't nobody stop us. Can't nobody stop us.
All right. We are here. Welcome to the Algorithmic Justice League's 5th anniversary celebration of the Gender Shades paper. I'm honored to be here with my sister, Dr. Timnit Gebru, who co-authored the paper with me, Dr. Joy Buolamwini. We're live streaming basically everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Go check it out. Use the hashtag GenderShades. So that's what we're here to celebrate today. The research paper, which had a significant impact on the tech industry and society by raising awareness about the limitations and harms of facial recognition technologies, sparking public debate and policy change, influencing industry practices, and showing the importance of having Black women-led research in an industry that is still so lacking in representation. Today, we will discuss how it all happened. We will also give out the first prize, $5,000, to someone who has been harmed by an AI system, someone who has been excoded, but not forgotten. Before we begin, I want to reintroduce Timnit and myself. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a poet of code. I tell stories that make daughters of diasporas dream and sons of privilege pause. I also have a day job. So I am the founder, president, and artist-in-chief of the Algorithmic Justice League. Check us out, ajl.org. Our purpose really is to reduce AI harms, prevent AI harms in society, and increase the accountability in the use of AI systems. And I'll pass it over to Timnit to introduce herself.
I am enjoying reading all the messages from everybody. My name is Timnit Gebru. I don't know when I met you. I think I met Joy 2016, something like that. I was a student then. I was a PhD student. Then I worked as a postdoc at Microsoft. Then I went to Google, and then I got fired from Google. And I learned from Joy that I think I have to start my own thing in order to survive and do this work. So now I am the founder and executive director of DARE, the Distributed AI Research Institute. So, and on March 17, we're going to have an event at DARE about another paper called Stochastic Parents, which also caused a little bit of chaos. So Joy, I want you to tell people, how did Gender Shades come about?
No, that's a good question. Also, I can't wait for the Stochastic Parent event. So if you guys want to continue the conversation, make sure to register. So back to Gender Shades. How did we get started? Back in the day when I was a grad student, this was in 2015, I was working on a class project. It used face tracking software. Didn't work that well on my face until I literally put on a white mask. I mean, Fanon already said it, black skin, white mask. I just didn't think it would be so literal. And so that experience of putting on a white mask to be seen by a machine really led me to start asking, wait a second, what's happening with computer vision and the machine learning and the deep learning that's happening within AI? So I was really fortunate to share my experiences on TED. And I thought, you know what, people might check my claims, let me check myself. I took my TED profile image, started testing it on different systems. I wasn't detected in some, and then I was misgendered in others. So I was like, well, let's look at the whole gender thing. So that's really how Gender Shades got started. And then I did a whole MIT master's thesis on it. And from that, we then published the paper that people are familiar with. So it has this whole build up, right? 2015, I'm a student figuring things out. 2016, I decide, okay, this is what I want to focus my research on. 2017, I get that master's degree. 2018, we go and we publish the paper from all of that work and add more work to ourselves. So I'm really curious, what made you decide to come work with me first as an advisor, right, when I was doing my master's thesis, and then to co-author the paper?
So I remember, I have to give kudos to Jess. I think you are both Rhodes Scholars, right? And we were randomly talking, and Jess was like, you got to meet this person. I think you'd love her work. She talks about, she sent an email asking if there is anybody on the list with computer vision expertise. So I emailed you. So I had watched your TED talk by then. And then that was also around the time, like, I was super frustrated because I was, going to these conferences in AI. I remember you came to the first Black in AI workshop, right? Where we had some experiences, but like, all of these conferences where we saw no Black people, right? Out of 5,000-6,000 people, all these AI conferences. And then there was the ProPublica article around that time too, talking about how these systems were being used to quote unquote determine whether somebody was going to commit a crime again or something like that. So it was like, I was kind of starting to be aware of some of these issues. And then I saw your work and I was like, I got to meet this person and just talk to her and figure things out. And so that was why I wanted to, that's how we started working on it. Right. And I didn't even know that I didn't think we were going to publish a paper or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure that you had support for that work. And I really didn't tell other people about it too. I didn't know how to explain, what we were even trying to do. So yeah, it was like, this is the only paper I think I've worked on where it's 100% Black women authors, right? So that's already super important for me. But yeah, and then of course I learned how to work on really impactful research. It wasn't just a paper, but all the things that came after it. And I have to say, we've really come a long way in terms of impact. And I did not foresee that it was going to be like that. I think you kind of did. So why don't you tell us about, let's talk a little bit about the impact of this work.
Yes, well, I have to give you your flowers because when I was doing this research, and just like you were saying, you didn't quite know where to place it, people didn't quite know where to place me, which is not a bad thing if you're at the Media Lab, because you can just get your own corner and do whatever you want. And so I wasn't prevented from doing this kind of research, but people certainly around me didn't get it. And so it was so affirming to have you come on board, encourage me to continue doing. I was like, I don't know if we want to do skin type. Do we want to talk about color? They're like, go for it. I'm like, all right, So I really do appreciate.
I was so excited when you started talking about skin type. I remember, I'm like, that's it. That's the thing that people haven't done.
Right. So I can't emphasize how important it was for me to have your encouragement and support. And sometimes you don't always get that support around you, not because people don't want to support, but they might just simply not understand what you're trying to do. So you came on board. I was like, all right, I'm not alone, right? So that was really helpful. And so, yes, we published the paper, and also the timing was great. Right after I turned in my master's thesis, they announced that there was a conference that was going to focus on fairness, accountability, and transparency, because before then, it really wasn't clear where you would academically publish something
computer
like
vision, people would be like, you're talking about racism? No, thank you. You can't publish that here.
So the times have changed now, but then it was really unclear. So the timing worked. And to your point, yes, let's talk about impact, which means we have to bring in the third member of our Face Queens squad, Deborah Raji, or Agent Raji, as I like to call her, who co-authored the follow-up actionable auditing paper with me, which pulled Amazon into the conversation we were having about algorithmic bias as it related to right? As it related to Microsoft, IBM, and Face++ products. So even though she's not here to join us today, we did accept the Electronic Frontier Foundation Pioneer Award, the three of us together. And she gave remarks then that are just as resonant now. So let's hear from Deb.
Hi, Deb.
Project is a challenge to every company that chose to omit us and our experiences in their definition of performance. We've shown that the failure of the models to perform on certain minority populations was not so much an inherent technical limitation as it was a reflection of how much certain groups were completely neglected in the initial understanding of machine learning engineers and other technologists of what it would mean for this technology to be accurate in the first place. Technology requiring the privacy violations of millions of individuals doesn't work. Technology so easily hijacked and repurposed to be weaponized and target and harass vulnerable communities doesn't work. And technology that fails to live up to its declared claims for some subgroups over other subgroups certainly does not work at all. The major contributions of the Gender Shades Project has included challenging evaluation norms in computer vision, machine learning, and AI more broadly, demonstrating the application of intersectionality to better illuminate understanding of AI limitations and capacities, putting research into action in remarkable ways through the AI Anti-Woman Project, the Black Panther Scorecard, multiple art shows, op-eds, and media creation, influencing policy debates and legislation through our participation in hearing and briefings at the local, state, and federal level, pushing for bans and moratoria on face surveillance at the local and state and federal level as well, influencing company practices at IBM, Amazon, and Microsoft, leading these companies to make explicit statements declaring their concern and understanding of the risk of face surveillance technology used by the police, pushing for Google to no longer offer gendered public API results, and most importantly, challenging the narratives of superiority. As Black women, really asserting ourselves in our experience and our understanding to declare that this kind of work is worthy of attention and is the definition of what it means for computer science research to be impactful in the field. Most importantly, we've demonstrated a wide range of collaborations. Through the Algorithmic Justice League founded by Joy, that institute has been we've been working across institutional boundaries, connecting with companies on coordinated bias disclosures and communications, working with civil society such as ACLU on the Press Pause campaign and successful face surveillance bans and advocacy campaigns, and then also connecting with those communities themselves and making sure that everyone from the tenants at a Brooklyn building in which the landlord is attempting to deploy facial recognition to citizens of a city such as Detroit that are going through police use of face surveillance and providing them an avenue to understand that their voices are heard and their voices are important in determining their own situation and their own experiences with this technology. I'm so privileged to have been joined by Joy and Timnit and to join Joy and Timnit and to share this message that we understood from the very first time we try to use facial recognition or any other open source tools, or the first time that we try to build our first models. I'm proud to stand with them against systems that continue to oppress us and stand together against anyone that still tries their best to get in our way. I remember the first time I met Joy sending an eager email after my own experiences working with data that completely omitted me. I remember the first time I met Timnit when she flagged me down at my first machine learning conference, directing me to a community and a world of collaborators and supporters that continue to be my lifeline in this industry today. I'm so proud of how far I've come, and I'm so thrilled as to how far we will go together moving forward.
Deb, we see you in the comments, and also I keep mementos, right? So this is front page of the New York Times business section for the paper that we co-authored, Actionable Auditing. And I want to remind you all that Deb was an undergraduate when she was the lead author for this paper, which showed the bias with Amazon products, which we hadn't done before. And she was very, shall I say, self-driven, because I was out most of the time on the road on the mission for algorithmic justice. And I'm an athlete, so I have to do at least one sports analogy. So when I think of the Williams sisters in tennis, how Venus was iconic and she paved the way. Without Venus, there's no Serena, and Serena then became the GOAT. I think Timnit and I have paved the way, And Deb, I'm calling it now. Deb's the GOAT, gonna be the GOAT.
No
for
pressure, Debs.
auditing. She's already leading world expert. I mean, like, come on. So
Can I say that I want to tell people that you got that EFF award for yourself and you wanted to share it with the two of us. And I really appreciate that about you, like that you want to share the stage and the glory, because they gave it to you and you asked them if you could share it with the other two of us. And, you know, I think people should know that.
well, thank you. Well, I didn't do it by myself. So it felt like it would be more fun for all of us to do it. So I really appreciate that. So as you see from the newspapers that I have, we had quite an impact on the media side. This is gender shades in the New York Times as well. And so I think they might pull up a screen grab here to show the 2018 coverage, right? So I could not have imagined a better way, going back to the New York Times, to talk about gender shades, because we had Steve Lohr, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, cover this paper. And I think because of that exclusive, it really then encouraged other media outlets to pick this up as well. So it was really, really great to have that opportunity.
How did it happen? How did that opportunity come?
Well, if you remember, I'm at the Media Lab. Media Lab is a megaphone, right? You can do something interesting and, you know, someone will see it. So I had that. And so the Media Lab had pitched an exclusive to the New York Times to somebody else. That person wasn't able to do it. I'm not sure why. And so I reached out to you, like, do you know somebody? And of course you did, because Steve Lohr had covered your PhD work.
Right.
Already. They even had photos of you ready to go, right?
Oh yeah,
So it was all set. And so because of your prior connections, that really allowed me to just, you know, trampoline off of that. And he restored my faith in journalism. I have to say, he was so thorough. He made sure he had all of the terms correct. And I was pleasantly surprised, because at that time, you know, I was seeing how coverage can go. And so it was a great experience.
So did you, like, I have a feeling that you knew it was going to be kind of big, but I'm asking, like, did you? Because I remember I tell you, like, oh, you're being paranoid. You're like, this paper is going to be controversial. I'm like, yeah, but, you know, like, did you have a hunch? Like, what kind of hunch did you have?
I mean, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean I'm wrong.
True. You told me, I told you so many times, and I agree. Yes.
Well, I switched my entire master's thesis. I was working on a completely separate project, and then I kept having experiences running into, you know, all kinds of face analysis fails. And I was thinking, this is going to be a huge conversation once these technologies start being more in the world. So I had a sense that it would be a big conversation. I didn't know quite how big it would be, but I knew enough to say we have to be very careful about how we do this work. So we even shared the results with the companies, right, before it went to.
And I was at one of them at the time.
So tell us about that. How did Microsoft respond when that happened?
Well, first, okay, so initially they're like, we got this paper, and then at some point they're like, wait a minute, Timnit here as actually a co-author of that paper. But I did not get fired, FYI. And after the New York Times article came out, they actually had it, Microsoft Research New York had it on the front page, like when you get to their website. But yeah, but it was a bit stressful, I have to say.
Fair enough. So from that, we had over 15,000 articles shared across 40 countries, I think, within that first year of when the paper came out. So no, I did not think it'd be quite that big, but I had a sense we would maybe upset some people. So let's talk a little bit about the industry response. As you know, I branded you Agent Corporate Chaos years ago. I didn't know that
Right,
it
Elon.
would play out
Yeah.
the way it did. Do you mind talking a little bit about the industry impact of gender shades?
I think that, well, it wasn't just with respect to face recognition, but just moving the field conversation as a whole. But in terms of automated facial analysis tools, all of them that we audited, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, they all backed away in different ways after being audited. So IBM no longer produces facial recognition or analysis software. And in fact, their CEO made a statement saying IBM firmly opposes and will not condone uses of any technology, including facial recognition technology offered by other vendors for mass surveillance, racial profiling, violations of basic human rights and freedoms, or any purpose which is not consistent with our values. Microsoft announced that they will retire face-based gender classification in 2023. So they say, we have, quote, we have opted to not support a general purpose system in the face API that purports to infer emotional states, gender, age, smile, facial hair, and makeup. And Amazon finally agreed to stop selling to police for the time being. So they were selling their recognition system to police, for anybody who remembers. And of course, this was after massive worldwide Black Lives Matter protests, right? After George Floyd was murdered by police. So it took for all of this for them to back away. And it wasn't just the gender shades paper, right? It was also actionable auditing, the actionable auditing paper that Debs here, who's watching, was the lead author of, and it put the pressure on all of these different companies. So Joy, you you were in congressional hearings. You've been doing all sorts of work on the law and policy side. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So you were asking that I know it would be big. I had a hunch. Did I know I'd be doing congressional testimonies? Definitely not. And to be just open, when I was doing this work, I'm very much coming from a CS background, right? So I'm thinking about it technically, then a socio-technical orientation to it, but I'm not thinking law policy. I'm thinking, okay, let's go to the companies, get them to change. Let's talk to the researchers, get them to change. So I learned so much, right? Working with people at places like the ACLU, Kate Crawford, I mean, just like took me and educated me really on saying, whoa, you have to pay attention to this other side too. And so now we just did an analysis where it said there were over 160 different legislative references, policy briefs, court cases, testimonies in aggregate, right, that reference this work in some way. And so on the domestic side, right, in the US, we've seen bans and moratoria on facial recognition technologies. In 2019, San Francisco made history, becoming Ban Francisco, first city to ban government use of facial recognition technologies. They were followed by Oakland and Berkeley. Then in Massachusetts, we had Cambridge, Boston, and Somerville, all areas we've frequented or lived in some way, ban it. So it's been really encouraging, not just then, but also now. Recently, the White House put out an executive order stating government agencies must prevent and remedy algorithmic discrimination. And this was following the release of a federal blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. So we've definitely made progress in the US, but let's not forget about the rest of the world, because this is no doubt a global conversation. So it was also fascinating in the analysis to see gender shades and this kind of work referenced throughout the world, though we still see that dominance of the global north conversation. And so I'm so proud of what you're doing with DARE, because you're bringing in voices that need to be centered but are oftentimes marginalized. And then if you move on to this timeline, you'll just get a sense of the many different headlines and highlights along this fight for algorithmic justice. I also have to shout out to my legal team, because I was subpoenaed so many times where they're like, nope, can't do it. She got to finish a degree. Right? Like, here's the thing. Nope, can't do it. Gotta finish a degree. But there's a guy who kept coming to my house, and I had to like duck
I
and
know.
hide so they couldn't serve me. I need to finish this PhD, you know. So it's been a whole ride. So I want to turn it over to you, Dr. Gebru, and tell us a little bit about the academic impact of gender.
So first of all, I'm being served. The same day I was asked to retract a paper from Google is when I was subpoenaed for a gender study. Someone actually, knocked on the door. I opened it, and they're like, "You've been served." And I'm like, "Is this in real life?" I thought that only happened in the movies, right? But thankfully, I didn't have to actually do anything. Do you guys hear the dogs? They're having a domestic dispute over here. But anyways, okay, I'm gonna put on my headphones really quickly.
Oh,
I
no
do
worries.
not anticipate the dogs be wanting to be part of this conversation.
That's a good mechanism for being served papers, right? Having some dogs.
Right, they did not. They failed me at the time. They did not really do their jobs.
You have the sweetest dogs. They have a loud bark, but they're not gonna do much beyond
They decided to bark right now, but so yeah, so in terms of the academic impact for me, first of all, I really learned about how, in order to have impact, you don't want to just move from paper to paper, right? With you, the biggest lesson for me when I worked with you was that you wanted to maximize to actually see this work through. So you were doing congressional testimony, you were doing your exhibitions, your spoken word, your Afropunk performance. And so I think that that's really what made the difference, right? What gave us what propelled the paper to have all this impact. So definitely my most cited paper. It has over 3,400 citations. And it's been, exponentially increasing, right? Since its publication. If you can look at it every year, it's an exponential increase. And another thing I've noticed is that it's not just the face recognition or surveillance conversation that this work has really impacted. It's also just the conversation around algorithmic bias in general in a range of scenarios. It's not just the surveillance conversation, right? I heard doctors writing about, how we need to be aware of those kinds of issues in healthcare, right? If people are developing melanoma detection or other kinds of automated ways of trying to diagnose some sort of disease, they have to be aware of these issues. There's this Twitter account called Brown Skin Matters Now that was started by this woman. I don't know if you saw it, right? So it's really been incredible for me to see this kind of impact. And you actually introduced me to the work of Dr. Safiya Noble, who's on our advisory committee now for DARE, Ruha Benjamin, all of these, even Weapons of Math Destruction. I remember you gave me a copy.
I had the book. I think when we first met in person, you came to give a talk at MIT.
When I lost my laptop, yeah.
No, there were other things. But I had them. I'm like, you have to read this, And so it was actually great to see all of those people in the come together, right, as this area has continued to evolve.
Yeah, so I think that it's been really great, but the issue is that, of course, it hasn't all been amazing kind of reception. There were some hostile reactions.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I do, but I also want to introduce, this is the shield most people know. But the shield has a twin, And the twin I made for Timnit, right?
The light-skinned one, the light-skinned shield.
Different skin types, trying to be
Patrick, yeah, or-ish.
exclusive right here. Inclusive. This one has been battled. All this to say is they're not just symbolic. We've come under attack quite a bit. I will say, because we did the first reception, right, when we did IBM, Microsoft, Face++, IBM and Microsoft being older companies, having faced their battles before, were very diplomatic in how they handled it. And even you were saying, right, that even in New York at Microsoft, they're showing the work.
Mm-hmm.
When we included Amazon, I will say the response was less than diplomatic. And I was actually in Switzerland getting ready to go to another conference, which was in Honolulu, when the actionable auditing paper came out, and it was in the New York Times. And I knew that there would be a lot of pushback because of how Amazon was responding to it and all sorts of things. So I wrote this long rebuttal, sent it to a lot of reporters, like, I won't be able to talk to you because I'm literally in the air. I land in Hawaii. I still have a huge red winter jacket, like completely out of place. Then I take off my jacket. I'm still out of place because I'm at an AI conference, right? But that was really when I saw the power of Amazon, because of how many people backed away from standing up. When Gender Shades was getting the glow, people were happy to be part of the show. When actionable auditing came out and Amazon Flex, people said no. But not everybody. And you and others came to my defense. So I want to talk about that because it meant so much. Can you tell us about coming? I threw you a shield. Tell us what that looked like. Here's you.
So, Deb was still an undergrad at the time, right? It was like these Amazon VP after VP was writing a blog post on Twitter, trying to attack your technical integrity. And it took everything out of me to not respond and comment and be like, oh no.
Yes, you not tweeting is massive restraint.
Yeah, it's just like, I need to not say anything. So Meg Mitchell, who was my co-lead at Google at the time, because we were both there, and I were like, okay, we're going to do a point-by-point rebuttal. So we put out all the arguments that they were saying and did a whole point-by-point rebuttal of their arguments from a technical standpoint, because that's what they were trying to be like, oh, these Black women don't know what they're talking about. Their work is not technically sound. And we wanted to say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So after we did that rebuttal, it took us like a whole month to do it. We assembled a whole bunch of academics, specifically machine learning and computer vision, and they helped us edit it and write an open letter, kind of coming to your defense, and then asking Amazon to stop selling their software recognition to police, to law enforcement, based on the findings of your work. And of course, that was on the news, and they couldn't really say anything after that, right? It was like, how are they going to, talk to a Turing Award winner about the fact that, he's wrong about your the soundness of your work. So that was super satisfying for us to see that. And I'm very happy that we actually waited to do this kind of defense. And so part of this, I think, was covered in the documentary Coded Bias. And so for those who haven't watched it yet, it's a documentary that premiered in Sundance. That's another impact we haven't talked about yet. And it examines the work of Gender Shades. And here is a trailer for those who haven't seen it yet.
During my first semester at MIT, I got computer vision software that was supposed to track my face. It didn't work until I put on this white mask. I'm thinking, all right, what's going on here? Is it the lighting conditions? Is it the angle at which I'm looking at the camera? Or is there something more? That's when I started looking into issues of bias that can creep into technology.
Our ideas about technology that we think are normal are actually ideas that come from a very small and homogeneous group of people.
Vast amounts of data at incredible speeds.
Everybody has unconscious biases, and people embed their own biases into technology.
So I remember, either if I'm talking to you on the phone or we're walking together or something, people would recognize you from this documentary. And that's incredible amount of impact for people to know, so many people to be brought into this conversation. So how did this happen? How did you work on this?
Yes, no, for a while my lab mates used to joke like the only way they knew I was actually in the building was if there was a camera crew and that it was just the set for my show. But the way Coded Bias came to be, the director, Shalini Kantanya, incredible filmmaker. She reached out to me on just about every platform and I just kept ignoring the message. But then she kept reaching out. And so because of her persistence, I was like, okay, let me look at who she is. And then she was very legit. TED Fellow, Fulbright Fellow, had already done other documentaries, executive producer with like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like very legitimate. So I was like, okay, let's meet. And we met. And so after our first meeting, we knew we had something. She was calling the film Racist Robots. I wasn't about the title, but I was about what she was trying to do. So I was like, we can get to that later. And it was great because she was there to follow the journey. We didn't know that the congressional hearings or anything like that would happen. We didn't know Amazon's response. So she started before all of that and then was there to capture it. So we premiered at Sundance. And Sundance started on my 30th birthday. So it felt I had reached my legit by 30 goals on that front. And then after that, I mean, we could fill a whole screen with all of the awards that it has gotten truly. And like things like the NAACP Image Awards, Critics' Choice. And then most recently, it was nominated for an Emmy. Like I can't even make this up in terms of thinking through where a research paper might go. And you can also watch it on Netflix. It's available on PBS Passport as well. So we are in Women's History Month. It's March. And one thing I love about the film is how it highlights leading voices, leading scholars who happen to be women who have been leading the conversations around algorithmic discrimination, algorithmic bias, and the need for algorithmic justice. And so to see so many people who had influenced me and shaped my understanding then be given a platform, right, to help educate others was huge. And I would say even more importantly, and that is a huge thing, the film also elevated the people on the front lines who were actually being impacted by harmful AI systems or automated decision making, right? So in the film, you see people like Daniel Santos, who's a teacher, and he's being told by a machine that his teaching isn't good, despite getting Teacher of the Year awards. Might not be so accurate. We see the Brooklyn tenants like Icy May and Trinae who are resisting the installation of facial recognition system in their apartment complex. We see LaTanya Myers, who's a criminal justice activist, named as high risk to society by a machine, and learning that no amount of good behavior on her part can reverse, right, what a machine has dictated. And so all of these real world stories were really the motivation for even doing the work around algorithmic bias and algorithmic discrimination. Because at the end of the day, we go beyond the performance metrics and we think about who's going to be impacted, what are the implications. And so, since Gender Shades has been released, we have seen headline after headline of AI fails. So, let's take a look at some of those now. Right. So these headlines show that the issues are ever present. It's not just face surveillance or biometric surveillance, though that's a huge part of the conversation as well. So this is part of why with AJL, we're redoubling our efforts when it comes to advocacy. Last year, we focused on a campaign on AI harms perpetuated by the federal government using an AI facial recognition service called IDV. So take a look at that video.
Turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a plan. Can't nobody
The IRS is pushing individuals to submit to facial recognition in exchange for being able to complete a range of basic tax-related activities online. To do so, the IRS has retained a private firm, ID.me.
The whole process is called ID.me. It requires you to upload a picture of your license or your passport, also with your social security number, and take a selfie. Sounds like a great way to verify someone's identity, except it's not verifying some people's identity.
According to the National Institute for Standards and Technology, an analysis of one-to-one facial recognition algorithms had sobering results, which included higher rates of false positives for Asian and African American faces relative to images of Caucasians. This isn't merely a problem for people of color.
I've been shut out of it for the past 2 weeks.
1 to 2 business days has already been.
Consider the story of a man in Colorado who says he spent months unable to access his unemployment benefits in large part because of ID.me.
One, I'm not getting paid. Now I'm having to send my information somewhere and I don't even know where it's going.
ID.me's sign-up process is also likely to present additional problems for trans and gender non-conforming people. The company's CEO also backtracked claims that ID.me's technology does not use facial recognition only after a leaked internal communication revealed that its engineers had been using one-to-many facial recognition for fraud detection. Beyond technical terms is something even more important: the right not to use biometric technology at all, regardless of accuracy. We do not have to accept the plunder of our faces. Get involved now and be part of the fight for algorithmic justice.
Everyone turn on your facial recognition block. We're here to make a plan. Can't nobody stop us.
Right, so government agencies are still using ID.me, though the IRS said they would stop after last tax season. So we're going to keep an eye on that and see if that is in fact the case. So if you want to apply pressure, go to dump ID.me because there are many more government agencies still using this. In the process of this campaign, we did find a unifier. Because some people will see police use of facial recognition like, I'm not going to have an issue with the cop. Taxes, all of us, or at least most of us, are paying. I know I am, right? I'll pay my taxes, right? So this example showed that no one is immune from being X-coded. And if you have a face, you have a place in the conversation about the future of AI. And it really comes back down to the question of why are we doing this work?
The X-coded.
Exactly. So the individuals, communities who've been negatively impacted by AI systems, the convicted, the condemned, the X-coded, which brings me to the most exciting part for me with this whole award whole thing, right, is to present the first ever Gender Shades Justice Award. I thought we were only going to do one, but now seeing the reaction, I'm going to concede this will be the inaugural award.
One of many.
One of many awards. The need is too great. And so the Gender Shades Justice Award is designed to honor a recipient who has experienced AI harm, taking the risk of voicing their experiences, and actively work to prevent future harm. While there are contests and awards that recognize the efforts of researchers evaluating AI systems, this award seeks to address the fact that there are very few avenues through which those impacted by AI harm are publicly celebrated and recognized for their contributions in the fight for algorithmic justice. Please see a video introducing our first award recipient for the Gender Shades Justice Award, Robert J. Williams.
Law enforcement's use of facial recognition technology has come under scrutiny in recent months. Now, a man who says he was falsely arrested after a computer algorithm misidentified his face is speaking out.
All right. Can I see what we're looking at? The cop gets a piece of paper and it says, there you go, felony larceny.
In October of 2018, someone stole nearly $4,000 in watches from this Detroit Shinola boutique. Robert Williams, who has no criminal history, was wrongly arrested for the crime on his front lawn in front of his wife and young daughters.
I got a call from my wife, and she told me that some detectives called her to tell me to turn myself in.
They came to the door, I answered it, and they kind of stuck their foot in the door and said, send Robert out. And I said, he's not here. They said, we just saw him come out of that van. And I said, that was my mom, he's not here.
I pull in the driveway here, hop out. By the time I close the door, the car is in the driveway blocking me in.
As soon as he shut the door, they were right on him, and they were already starting to cuff him by the time we get out there.
I was completely shocked and stunned to be arrested in front of my daughter, in front of my wife, in front of my neighbors. I can't really put it into words. It was one of the most shocking things I ever had happen to me. So when we get to the interview room, a detective turns over a picture of a guy and he's like, so that's not you? I look, I said, no, that's not me. He turns another paper over, he said, I guess this not you either. I picked that paper up and hold it next to my face. This is not me. I was like, I hope y'all don't think all black people look alike. And then he says, the computer says it's you. Hey, Julia. Julia, do you know why Daddy got arrested?
Because I looked that up on the computer.
Remember that when we was outside? I said they made a mistake and I'll be right back. I wasn't right back, though, was I?
Even with me following the facial recognition news and how it was being used, I didn't ever expect the police to show up at our doorstep and arrest my husband. So I just feel like other people should know that it can happen and it did happen and it shouldn't happen.
I don't even know what it's worth to not be arrested in front of your children. Like, what's that worth to you?
All right. We are so grateful to Robert for his leadership and resilience, the unaccountable and irresponsible use of facial recognition technologies and other algorithmic systems, despite well-documented limitations, is causing completely preventable harm. This is especially true when these systems are used by law enforcement agencies. We applaud Robert for lifting up his experience at great personal cost. We are honored to present him with the first Gender Shades Justice Award, and we're pleased to be able to give him a $5,000 honorarium. So we hope this award will inspire others to recognize and center the leadership of the Excoded. I could not be more honored to present you with the Gender Shades Justice Award. And I invite you now, Robert and Julia, if you'd like to share some brief remarks about what this award means to you.
Thank you. I have my award here in my hand. Appreciate it. I just like to first say that I'm grateful for being recognized, and I do humbly accept this award on behalf of me and my family. Um, we are happy to be recognized. This award means so much to me because it shows that there is a group of people out here who does care, or who do care about other people. And I just like to say I'm really appreciative of the Algorithmic Justice League and what they represent and what you guys are all about. I also like to say thank you to the ACLU of Michigan for all their support and being right there through a lot of trying times that I've been going back and forth with the police about. I also have to say thank you to the University of Michigan and the Civil Rights Initiative litigation team, all the attorneys and all the student attorneys that have helped out with the process. I just want to say to anybody who's listening at this point, I guess, just to have the opportunity to let my story be a forewarning to the rest of the world that if it happened to me, it could happen to you, right? I just was a regular. I was at work and was trying to get home, and I got arrested for something that had nothing to do with me, and I wasn't even in the vicinity of the crime when it happened, right? So it's just that I guess the way the technology is set up, everybody with a driver's license or a state ID is essentially in a photo lineup, right? And it was also like my children were small then at this time. It's years ago now, but they were 6 and 3 at the time, and it was their first interaction with the police. So it was real traumatic for my 6-year-old because she assumed, and I guess she can still assume, that the police are the good guys, but they arrested Daddy right in front of her. So we had to have that conversation way earlier than we needed to have that conversation. So basically, I just want to say I hope that we can get some type of change the way that they're using this technology, get it ceased, or at least rework something to get it right. And that way it won't have to impact another family, right? Because it wasn't just me. I got arrested, but then I got arrested in front of my children, and then of course my wife had to get me out of jail at that point. So, but not to get off track, I just want to say thank you again for all y'all doing, fighting for the human rights of everybody, and helping to get this message out to the mass public.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We also appreciate all of the cute behind the scenes photos that you sent. After I saw it, I was like, all right, we're giving out more of these. So really do appreciate it. Well,
yeah.
my
kids were extra happy, right? They're like, you got an award. You got an award. I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm just doing what I need to do, right? So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on a Thursday. I know people have things to do, so we really appreciate everything that you're doing. And at AJL, we will continue this fight all the
Thank
way
you.
to the end. All righty. So now we have one last surprise before going off. I will end with a poem, but I also want to let you know that as part of the 5th anniversary celebration, the Algorithmic Justice League is releasing a commemorative website, which currently has a fun visualization showing all of the members of the data set that we use. And we will be making a new, never before released data set available to the research community. So that's coming soon. So make sure you sign up, go to gendershades.ajl.org or just gs.ajl.org. Also, if you want to know more about what we're doing, sign up for our newsletter. And make sure to keep following us on social media. I want to thank everybody who came out today. Thank you in the audience. I'm seeing your messages. They are wonderful and encouraging. I want to thank the production crew making us all look good behind the scenes. Robert and Julia, thank you so much for taking the time and accepting the inaugural Gender Shades Justice Award. And I want to especially thank Timnit, because of all of the impact that Gender Shades has had, the biggest impact for me is our friendship. And you've shown up for me time and time again, saved me from myself many times. There would be no Gender Shades without you. There would be no Algorithmic Justice League without you. So I am forever grateful, and also grateful to you too, Agent Deb. All right, now as artist in chief of the Algorithmic Justice League, I will end with a poem to the excoded. To the excoded, like the Brooklyn tenants, like the asylum seekers at the borders. To the excoded, sons, husbands, fathers, like Robert Williams, resisting and revealing the lie that we must accept the surrender of our faces, the harvesting of our data, the plunder of our traces. We celebrate your courage. No silence, no consent. You show the path to algorithmic justice requires a league, a sisterhood, a neighborhood, hallway gatherings, Sharpies and posters, coalitions, petitions, testimonies, letters, celebrations, awards, research and potlucks, dancing and music. Everyone playing a role to orchestrate change. To Robert Williams and freedom fighters around the world, persisting and prevailing against algorithms of oppression, automating inequality through weapons of math destruction. We stand with you in gratitude. You demonstrate that people have a voice and a choice. When defiant melodies harmonize to elevate human life, dignity, and rights, the victory is ours. Thank you.
Yeah.